Well, hey there, and welcome back. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. I chatter on about the movies that I love, and on occasion I get silly and headbang to my favorite music. And now we're going to continue the Cube series. I don't own them physically. I bought them on Voodoo, which is pretty rare for me. But yeah, they were cheaper as a Voodoo pack than trying to get them on physical media. I'm really hoping that maybe one day they'll release a Blu-ray trilogy of them, and I can have the collection that way at a reasonable price. But we're going to move on now with the second in my review timeline. Second in the timeline, but it was the original movie, and that was Cube from 1987, and it stars Nicole de Boer, who, if anyone is a Trekkie out there, knows that she played Dax for the last season of Deep Space Nine. She was the one who replaced the original Dax, who had been through the whole series. Maurice de Wint and David Hewlett. And yeah, it was directed by Vincenzo Natali. And what is the score? 7.2 for a horror movie on International Movie Database. It's very popular. And so yeah, that's Cube. Is it 87 or 97? It says 1997, but Google says 1987. In any event, it's an older movie. So, as I said in the last video, I really liked Cube Zero, and it explained a lot and allowed me to watch this movie from a little different perspective than I had ever seen it before, because now I had a little picture of the crazy, evil empire, that's kind of working behind it. Obviously, it seems to be. I got definite. I had definite Handmaiden Tale vibes from Cube Zero. You know, that's kind of what. That's just the vibe that I got. It felt like there was something like that because of some of the things that were said in it. You can see my review on that. But if you watch it, you'll pick up on little things like them burning that guy at the end for saying he didn't believe in God. So, yeah, there seemed to be something going on there. But Cube opens with a kill, of course, like they all have, or those two did. You have this guy going through, he's in a room and he's opened up. In this one, though, they're colored, they're different colors. And he opens one and shuts it, opens another and shuts it, then ends up finally going into one where he is, bam, just like that. It's startling, actually, and he just, like, he's cubed. he just, like, he just falls apart into a bunch of cubes. So it was, like, really interesting. And then we get introduced to our team, just like from Cube Zero. We have Worth, who is a weirdo, and then we have Levin, who is played by, De Boer, who from Deep Space Nine. We have Alderson, Holloway, Quentin, and Rennies, and then Ren, Ren, yeah, French, Ren. Um, Now Ren is, and I might have gotten it confused with Cube Zero, but Ren in this one is the prison break expert that Quentin, who is the cop, I think I said this in Cube Zero. I'm not sure. I may have confused them because it was. But then again, there was a lot of similarities between the two. So, because there was the soldier in the first one and the cop in this one. But so Ren is the prison break expert who ends up then he's sort of not a real team player, and he's like, y'all can tag along if you want to, but I'm getting my ass out of here. And he goes in there and gets, torn apart, uh, or his face does anyway, because he gets into a room thinking he's so smart, and he gets sprayed this big face full of acid. And they do manage to get him back into the room, but that is a very gross scene because his face is like eaten, and they show it from the side, how his whole face is just gone and sunk down. So, that was it. And then we move on to the team trying to figure out, of course, why we're here, what's going on, who are you, um, but unlike in Cube Zero, I guess they've stopped the memory erasure because they all know who they are. They just don't know why they're there. They know what they were doing, then they went to sleep, or they were knocked out and they ended up here. They just don't know why. In Cube Zero, they didn't have any memory of who they were or where they came from. But in this one, they have all of their memories. They just don't know why they're there. So, um, yeah, so they're trying to figure out what you would, why we're here, what's going on. That's when Levin figures out. They, of course, start moving, trying to get out like anybody would. I don't know about me, though. Well, you would have to, but I don't think I would move quite as fast. They all just start going, let's go, let's go. I, I'd probably sit on my ass for a good 24 hours, like going, I ain't moving. I'm not going nowhere until I know more about what's going on. So, but Levin, of course, as they're going along, Cube Zero was letters, but here they're numbers, and she figures out that the numbers are a way to determine whether the room is trapped or not by thinking that it's primes. As long as the rooms are prime numbers, then they're clear. And that works out for a while. Um, so I think she had part of it, but she didn't have the complete picture. They're, of course, getting to know each other. Um, and that's when they run across Kazan, who is my favorite character in this movie because he's just so damn cute. And I feel for him so badly because, like I said, in the Cube Zero review, I couldn't understand what kind of, why I think cruel and evil people would have any morals or ethics is beyond me, but I just don't understand why they would put a mentally handicapped person into a place like that to possibly suffer such horrible deaths, and but I really felt for him, and it was, I like his character. So they run into Kazan, and then of course, um, he ends up joining the team, and there's a lot of team tension, and interestingly enough, Levine doesn't like Kazan either. Holloway, she's the one. She's a psychologist, and she's the one that takes care of him And Worth is just sort of, he's just like a sad, no ambition, doesn't care. His attitude is that. So he's sort of neutral. Quentin is the crazy one. You can tell pretty quick that this guy is got some issues. You know, definitely got some issues. So he's the one to keep an eye on. But Levine, she, you know, she's little, but she's kind of a bitch. And even she acts bitchy towards Kazan, which is kind of shocking to me. You know, that she was like, you know, she was basically with Quentin on the idea that we don't need, you know, the retard with us. And that kind of shocked me. So Quentin's obviously got big issues. Then Holloway, they're taking turns, like, you know, testing the rooms, the next room, and there is that funny scene when Holloway goes through and she starts freaking out, thinking that something is wrong with her. She starts hacking and coughing and like choking and can't breathe, and they all start screaming, "Oh my God, it's gas! You know, it's some kind of poison gas." And then she just says, "No, never mind. It was the button I swallowed." Now that was because earlier, the guy, she was worried about losing, you know, that they were going to starve to death and, you know, thirst to death. And he told her a little trick was to suck on a button. Keep a button in your mouth and suck on it. A button like from a shirt. And that it would keep the saliva flowing if you suck on a button. So she, you know, thought that, or she accidentally swallowed it and started choking for a minute, and that made everybody think that she, you know, was that, had been poisoned. Um, Quentin is the next one to almost get killed with this, and that would have been a great scene. And actually, you know, if you what you know, once you get to the end of the movie, you'll actually be very disappointed that it didn't happen to him, because at at this point in the movie, it's a narrow escape where it's like all these wires and they twist, and that would have been an ugly, ugly death. But then by the end of the movie, though, you're very disappointed that that didn't happen when it had, which we'll get to, of course. So he begins to think that he begins to think my papers want to be ill with me. So he begins to think that Worth is involved. They begin to really. He's starting to have problems with everybody, but Quentin and Worth are starting to really get this, mostly on Quentin's end, are starting to get really, really tension between them and start having problems and anger because Worth keeps saying that there's no way out, and he's got absolutely, like I told you, he's got this personality of being very resigned to his fate, and that's not helpful in a situation where a team of people are trying to get out. If you've got somebody with you who is like, we're all going to die, just shut up and sit down and take it. No, that's not helpful. So I do understand their irritation with Worth, because, you know, that's not exactly rallying the troops, you know, like, we got to find a way out of here. No, it's hopeless. Well, I think you need to be left back in a room if you want to know the truth. But um, so Worth finally then admits, because, you know, they're like really on him about what is your fucking problem. And that's when Worth admits that he was part of the design of the designers. So once again, just like in Cube Zero, we find out that employees of this whoever's running this are themselves screwing up and getting put into the cube. And so he actually was a part of the construction, and so he could only tell them a little bit. But because no place that's putting something like that together is going to let the right hand know what the left hand is doing. So he didn't know much, but he could tell them, you know, um, that how big it is, what the dimensions are, which allows them to figure out, mentally in their head what this cube looks like and how many rooms are in it. And that's when Levine also figures out that the numbers are coordinates as well, which allows them to plot their position because she's like a mathematical genius. And so she can actually plot the room location or where they're at inside the cube, trying to get to one of the outer rooms. So the next room that they try to go into is the traps are sound activated, because up until then they had been using, like in Cube Zero, they had been using boots and stuff for motion sensor. But the next one we find out, thanks to Kazan actually, that it's sound activated. So they have to be like really quiet to get through that room. And that's kind of hard when you've got a person with severe autism, or what we now know is probably some kind of surgical intervention, because that's what happened in Cube Zero. That makes him able to, he's that way, so he could like yell out at any minute. So that's not exactly going to make you comfortable trying to go through a sound activated trap room. So they end up in like these big giant fight, because Quentin and them of course want to leave Kazan behind. Holloway ends up calling Quentin a Nazi, and they end up like getting torn into a like really rip torn fight between them, and that's pretty interesting to see. You can tell though that he is really, Quentin is really is a nutcase. You can tell that. He's probably a nutcase outside as well. So they finally find that they're on the outside, that they're on an outside room next to the outside, and they get the door open, and it's like massive. I mean, they're looking up and they're looking down, and there's really nothing there, and they want to get out to try to do it. So Holloway agrees to, they take all their clothes off except their underwear, to make a rope for somebody to go out there and see if they can calm down a little bit and see anything. I mean, they're trying to get out, of course. So Holloway agrees to do it, and during her attempts to get to the wall, jumping, back and forth, they almost lose her, and Quentin ends up hanging out the door. They're all back here holding the clothes rope, and they can't see what's going on, but she almost fell, and she's climbing up the rope, and he's got her by the hand. And then even before it happened, I was like, oh no, he's not going to, this is his chance. And sure enough, he dropped her and then claimed to the others that she had slipped, but we saw what he did, and that was he murdered Holloway. So he tells everybody else though that she had slipped. He has become completely psychotic, and he ends up even like kidnapping Levine away from Worth and Kazan, and tries to and takes her into another room and tries to get her to go alone with him and leave those two behind. Um, but as he's trying to do that, um, Worth and Kazan catch him. Um, and that's when, you know, another big gigantic fight happens. Quint nearly beats him to death with a boot and throws him into one of the next rooms where he starts giggling like a psycho. Worth does. And that's when the room starts shaking, and finally it occurs to them that the rooms are actually like a Rubik's Cube. The rooms are actually moving and reorganizing. And Levine is trying to figure out, well then, if the coordinates don't matter, there's got to be something more then, because if the rooms are moving, then knowing your location at any given time isn't really going to help you that much. And also because they found trapped rooms that were primes. So her theory about the rooms, you know, that were derivatives of primes were not trap free. That was not going to work, you know, that they weren't safe. So obviously there was more to it. So that's when they realized, with the help of Kazan, you know, that it's actually permutations is the real way to map the factor. Kazan turns out to know the factors, the prime factors of these numbers, because they are so huge that to calculate them in your head, you would have to be a computer, or you would have to either be altered or something like a idiot savant. You know, to be a savant, you would have to, do that, and Levin wasn't one. Turns out now we know why Kazan is in there, because he is actually a genius. He is actually a savant. He is severely autistic, but at the same time, he can actually, in his head, almost instantly, figure out the factors, the prime factors of a large number, like 768. So they discovered that she was partially right, that the safe rooms were primes, but they were prime factors, not prime numbers alone. So that's how they figured that out. They keep making their way trying to find this final room, just like in Cube Zero, what they call the bridge room that would allow them to get out. So they keep trying to find that, and they actually lose Kazan for a short period of time when he doesn't make it through a door in time. And she waits in a room while Worth goes and finds him, because they can hear him. They can hear him doing his autistic holler, his sound that he makes. And they were able to get him back, and they all finally find the bridge room, which turns out to be the room that they started in. Now, Quint, whom they had gotten rid of, they had gotten away from Quint, he shows up, and he actually kills Levin, which I did not see that coming, because they had found the bridge, they had opened the door, and there they were. Kazan was still alive. Um, Levin was still alive, and Worth was still alive, and that psycho Quint, he was back in the cube somewhere, hopefully dead. And all of a sudden, though, right there at the end, he like skewers her. I mean, like stabs her, and this thing comes through her chest, and he kills her right there. And you're like, okay, I didn't see that coming, not for a second. So that was pretty like in your face, and that of course makes Worth attack Clint, and they start going at it again until finally Quint. I have to stop and think. And then Quint ends up stabbing him. He stabs Worth, and Kazan has gotten out because Worth had told Kazan to get out, to go to the light, to get across the bridge. So you have little Kazan getting out, but then Quint grabs him by the foot, and these rooms are fisting to move. They're fisting to do their Rubik's Cube thing. So they're fisting to reorganize. So he thinks that he can stop Kazan, and if he didn't let him go, you see what I'm saying? If he didn't let him go, then when the room moves, he's going to be like squished against the wall. So Kazan manages to get far enough into the little tunnel that Worth, who's stopping Quint from getting across, is actually holding him when the room moves. So he's smeared like a bug across the wall, which is pretty good. I mean, Levin getting killed was horrible, but at least Quint finally got what he deserved because he was a complete sucker. So Kazan is actually the only survivor because Worth, he's stuck in there, right? And he was also gutted. So he actually falls on the floor and crawls over there towards Levine, where he then turns up and is dead and dies as well. So Kazan is the only one that got out, and that's where the movie ends, is him walking into the light, and you're like, okay, well, that was nice. That was nice. He got out, and yeah, that was it. I was just thinking, did they do anything to him or not? No. He got out, and they didn't show anything else happen. He just walked away into the light. So, that's Cube. From, I still say it was 1987, even though International Movie Database says it's 1997, because it wasn't Cube an 80s movie. I don't know. That's got me confused. I'll have to do a Google now on it to find out for sure. But yeah, like I said, I really love. Now I do like Cube better than Cube Zero, but only maybe by half a point. I give Cube Zero a 7.5, and I give Cube like an 8. I adore Cube. Cube is a fascinating, fantastic movie. And what's interesting about them is that they are different. Cube has a lot more interpersonal stuff within the team because they're not having to split the story between the control room. Like in Cube Zero, you had a split story. It was the control room and the backstory and what was going on with these people. And then you had the team story of them trying to get out. Whereas the original Cube, it doesn't have any of that. So they can devote all of their film time. I think what cube is 1 hour and 30 minutes, and cube 0 is an hour 37. So they're able to devote their full time to just the team and the team's interrelationships, and trying to avoid these traps and getting through. Whereas in cube 0, you had the backstory, the control room. At the same time, you're also watching, just like Cube, this team try to escape these rooms and these traps. So that's really the difference between them, is you know that. But if you watch them back to back, you're basically getting some control room stuff, the backstory, and then it just kind of evolves into the original Cube, which is all that thing. And like I said, we'll talk about Hypercube, which is definitely the weakest of the three. Definitely the weakest of the three, and it's also, but it is good. I like it, but yeah, I definitely have something to say about that movie. But in any event, I'm very, very glad that you stopped by. Always remember, you're a very, very special person. Yes, say it with me. No matter what someone is doing to you or anyone is doing to you, no matter what the world is doing to you, you are the only one of you. And you are the reason the world exists. You. Just you. And that goes for every one of you. So we're all the reason the world exists. The universe exists within us. We are star stuff. That's from Babylon 5. But yeah, thank you for stopping by, and I will see you in the next video, which will be my discussion of Cube 2 Hypercube. And man, Hypercube is not lying either. So I will see you then. Love you, miss you, bye. Try not to make these so outrageously long. But I will see you in the next one. Keep screaming, but only when appropriate. And keep rocking very, very hard. Love you. See you later.